Just had a delivery at work. That is my new inner wing for the near side, which was 46 quid. A battery tray for the near side again, which was 23 quid. And then two of these, which are the chassis reinforcing outrigger things. Mine at the rear has disappeared completely, and the one at the front is deformed and very rusty. So the pair of them was 26 quid. Unfortunately, you can't get the one for the rear anymore, which is shallower. So I've bought two front ones. I'll just have to cut it and then shorten it, weld it back together again, or cut it and then just refold the top flange in the right place. But it's pretty good stuff. They're all original pressings, so they'll fit perfectly, and of course they're not rusty. You might have seen, well, you will have just seen by the time this is edited, that I've bought a new battery tray. That is because this one has got some holes in, and although I could patch it, it's going to need to come out of the way so I can repair that hole there. On SD1s, it's usually the battery tray that side which goes, because that's the one that only has a battery in it. But being a diesel, this has two batteries, and when Rover decided to build the diesel, they didn't weld a proper bracket to the wheel well, they just riveted that black one on, and that seems to trap a lot of water behind it, which causes them to rot out. If you look on this side, from factory it had that big blue bracket welded, which doesn't trap water, so unless acid spills, they, you know, they're okay, as it were. But yeah, this side has gone, so I'm going to go and get the drill out the rivets, get that bracket off, and also going to remove that inspection plate, detach all the wiring in the engine bay, and then poke it back inside the wing so that when I'm chopping in that area I'm not damaging anything. So I'll go and get my tools, and this torch is, I think, getting a bit low on battery, so I'll charge that up too. Got all the gubbins out of the way, and these are the plates that were there, so I'll put them in the blasting cabinet and clean them up. Just a couple of simple pressed steel parts. I was going to go and get the drill to drill out the rivets to pull that bracket off, but I pulled it instead and it just came off because all the holes had rusted out, so that's good. That can also go in the blasting cabinet to be cleaned up. Now I'm going to get the grinder and start making some exploratory chops in there. Might also jack up this corner of the car, get the wheel off, and have a view from inside. Just cannot help myself sometimes, it's just too much fun. This is taking literally no effort with an old chisel. I can just push that and it just disintegrates. So it's grim but annoyingly satisfying, especially when I know I'm going to chop it all out and fix it. And here's the view from the wheel well side, so all of that's going to need to come out. Bottom edge has gone frilly, but once again, look how good that wheel arch is. I might have had my hand over the microphone, but basically I was saying, look how good that wheel arch is. Usually these are really rusty in the top there where the turrets are, but that's all really, you know, perfect. So on with the chopping. Before I chop, actually, I might just mark up how far I think the rock goes and get a wire brush on it, get the underseal off, because otherwise you burn through loads of like cutting discs chopping out stuff, only to realise that you need to chop a bit further. So at least if I get the underseal off first, find how far the rust tracks, then I can do like 4 straight lines and hopefully just be a bit neater and save myself some discs. That's the wire cup I'm going to use. I find if I use a sanding disc on this, the bituminous stuff just heats up and then smears, whereas this will just flick it off and away, hopefully. Here we have our rust exposed, so that's not too hard to do. I should be able to do that as an invisible repair. Got a bit in that seam there. The bit of metal closest to us is, I think, 1.5 or 1 mil thick. I think it's 1.5. So basically that'll just sand back to surface. And the bit on the left, this bit, is thin metal, but I have a repair section from another car which I'll put on from the other side. That's the lower subframe mounting point. So I'll chop all this out, clean it all up, and then put a plate across there. And then this is the lower apron that like comes down the forward edge of the wheel well and meets up with the underbelly panel. So I'll need to just make a thin bit for that. They always go because they're just real thin steel and they're right at the bottom of the car with all the like road dirt and grime and mud and crap just sit on the top of the underbelly panel, rotting that bit out. So that's not surprising, that's gone. Then we come to the bottom of the inner wing here and the bottom of the outer wing. Ideally I'd chop all of that and replace it, but I'm not going to change the outer wing at the moment, which means I'm not going to bother changing the inner wing at the moment either, because I'm concentrating on stuff that needs to be done to get it through an MOT. So I'm going to leave that, and I'm probably just going to put seam sealer in it, knowing that I'll chop it out later. So now I'm going to work from this side and chop out the main piece of the battery tray and start cleaning it up. Got the majority of the battery tray out. That bit there is like a reinforcing tray that the battery tray welds down onto, so I'll have to come back and sand those off or drill the spot welds out afterwards. The chassis rail is good. It might need a tiny bit of attention there, I'm not sure yet. What's really disappointing and a bit of an old crap moment is just how rusty that wheel well is. If I'm honest, it could do with a new one, but that involves unpicking half the front of the car, and I'm not ready to do that at this stage. So I'm still going to proceed with plan A, which is to cut a strip out, probably 3 inches wide, replace that, replace a bit of metal in here, and patch that bit down there. When you view it from underneath, it looks like a sack of shit, because it kind of is a sack of shit, but the bottom bit's frilly and got holes in. The middle section's okay. So basically, of the wheel well, I'm going to be using the top and the bottom. No, sorry, I'm going to be using the top, chopping out the middle, keeping a little bit, and then rebuilding the bottom. So a bit of a strange repair, but never mind. That's the way it's going to be done. And then this is my donor panel, which will be, I can't fit it in yet, it's still oversized, but that'll be going back in there. So you're never going to see any of these repairs, or hopefully you won't anyway if I do it right. And the underside, when I've finished, will all be epoxied and stone chipped, so it shouldn't ever rust again. I mean, these cars had minimal stone protection under the front. These were all pretty much just bare blue body colour. They didn't even get the rubberized stone chipping that you get in the wheel wells, so that's why the fronts all rot out. What's good on this one is how solid the lower rad support mounts are. They generally dissolve and drop off. Again, it's all just surface rust, so I can clean it up and treat it and hopefully just have it nice and solid. There's only limited amounts to which I can do now. I might chop that bit out and then go looking for a suitably shaped piece of metal in another donor car. The other benefit of sanding all of the under seal off first before you chop out your panel, and I don't mean to be like pretending to be an expert here, it's just something I've learned. If you leave it all in one piece and you know exactly how much you're going to want to cut out, if you trim it out with one of the 1 mil cutting discs, like that, thin one, you can basically then take that, your offcut, and offer it up to a new piece and use it as a template. It's a lot easier than then getting the cardboard out and trying to do it the old school way. So there we have a nice clean hole where there was formerly rust. Here we have the bit I chopped out. It's very flimsy because it's basically mostly rust, but it has at least kept most of its shape. So what I've been doing is offering it up to this old wheel well. Annoyingly, I've already chopped the bit out that I needed. I actually welded it into my mate Jason's car, which was also a diesel, and I've basically done this exact repair to his car. So I've lost the bit I actually needed, but there's the possibility that I can get it out of there. I'll move this into the light so you can see it a bit better. Wheel well, donor or like scrap panel. The reason I'm not going to try and make it out of Zintek myself is because this actually has a curve in 2 planes. May not look it, but it curves obviously that way around, but also that way around as well. So you've got to be a bit of a master to shape that. So I'll try and get it out of here. If not, there's a possibility I can do it out of 2 sections using that bit. Or if I really am struggling, I might try beating it out of steel, but I've not done that before, so that could be quite interesting. This is actually chopped out of a driver's side wheel well, and that weird curved shape is for clearance to the brake servo. So I don't need that, so I'm going to try and tap that out. I've got a couple of hammers, but I don't really have any panel beating tools. So what I've got is a part of a bearing, thanks to my colleague Richard, who took apart an MR2 gearbox in here the other day and then threw the rest in the scrap bin. And I've got some MAP gas, so I'm going to heat that up a bit and tap it and see if I can get that into the sort of shape I need. I've been going at this a while now, not actually put any heat on it. I've just been working the backside with the little hammer, just tappy tappy tap tap all the way around, and it's starting to come out. So I'm going to warm it up a bit more, and hopefully I can sort of invert that dent and then get it to bend the right shape for my repair section. I really wish I had a tripod, because that was quite impressive. Not what I did, but what the metal did. So basically warmed it up a little bit till it started smoking. I don't really know how hot MAP gas gets, but it's a lot hotter than butane, so I don't want to completely shag the metal. But yeah, I warmed it up, tapped from the outside towards the in, and then when I got to the middle of the dent, it just went boing and kind of inverted. It doesn't look it there, but it's actually, you know, it was actually quite noticeable to see. So I'm just going to carry on working it now and laying it over the top of here, continuing to tap and see if I can get it the right profile. Right, just been tapping away. It's getting not close, but at least, you know, a piece of metal I can now work with. So I'm going to go out to the car for a bit of a reality check. Okay, I'm just playing around out here. If you hold it like that, it actually looks pretty good. Then when I take my hand away and you look at the profile there, there's quite a significant curve to the bottom, curve at the bottom, but not up here, which means I've got to have like a tapering curve in that. So I'm going to go back inside after I've marked it up and try and put that bend in. I'm also going to try and leave enough meat on that end to put a 90-degree return flange on, which will butt up to the inside of the inner wing. Alright, back inside again. What I've done is drawn very roughly the start of that curve at the bottom, the end of the curve and where the apex is, and then where it's going to taper off to where there's less of a curve at the top. So I'm going to use that as a reference to get the rough shape. Annoyingly, I've realised that this is probably not long enough to do the curved bit and the return flange. I might have to weld an extension piece on the end of this. So I'm just going to concentrate on the curve first, get that right, and then it's easy to weld a bit on the end of this flat section to make up any material I'm missing. That's looking pretty promising. Got quite a sharp curve at the bottom, and yet a more open curve at the top, and I know that I can bend that with my hands or just pressing on the table. So when it comes to welding, I could tack the bottom on first in the correct profile, and then almost just bend this to shape, because the curve's not so significant and there's quite a lot of height difference here. I should be able to lose it just by like hand pressure. So I'm going to go offer it up to the car again and scribble on it some more. Then I'm not sure how much more I'm going to do tonight because I'm really hungry and I fancy a kebab. So yeah, this might be the last video. Okay, I lied. This is the last video, and the reason I'm taking it is because I'm feeling pretty smug. That's going to work. I've got enough material to get into that corner. I'll have to weld a flange onto it, and I'll have to weld that hole up there, that one, but that's going to work. So yeah, I'll leave that for another day, I think, and pack up and go home.